Okay. So this time of year, as we used to do it when we used to meet in the church, and that we like to thank people. And actually, if somebody can watch the chat and the admitting people, it's a time of year we like to recognize some of the more active volunteers. I'd first like to thank the executive for everything they do, and it has been a different year, or the last couple of years have been very different. There's just too many different activities and that to thank everybody for it, but a big thank you goes out to the executive. Thank you to our newsletter crew, Linda Soar, Catherine Ho, which just came on this year to be our designer, Jane Shoemaker, Liz Thunstrom, and Brian Wormold. Also like to thank John and Christina Sarimba for being our BAT team coordinators and all the things they do. They do a ton of stuff other than just the BAT team. So thanks very much. And we have a new chair of the Education Conservation Committee, and that's Sarah Aleka. And thank you very much for stepping into that position. And our monthly Zoom meetings wouldn't be possible if not for the team of volunteers, and a big thank you to them. And we do have an incredible list, or we have incredible guest presenters, and we really need to have a big thank you to Victoria Otten for organizing most of these. And I hope I covered everyone, and I apologize to anyone I didn't mention. And we are a very busy club. So just to mention people stepping down from in this last year, and a big thank you to them. Brigitte Brewer has been our newsletter designer since 1994, which is about 27 years. That's a long time to hold that position, and Catherine Ho has taken over in that position. And so we thank Brigitte for that. And also, as Victoria already did, but thank you to Darlene Heath for taking time out of her busy life to be on our executive the last year. And it is that time of year when our memberships are due. It's $33 for individual or $40 for a family. And there's a few different options for payment. You can pay by mail, so mail in a check. We also have online through our website. You can pay by credit card or through PayPal. And we also have e-transfer. So those are some ways that you can pay your membership. And it hasn't been a great year for some of our older members. And so just remembering some of our longtime members who passed away in 2021. Marjorie and Mike Griffin are pictured here on BMN's 20th anniversary. It's Diane Thorne in the background that was presenting a plaque to us. And Marjorie and Mike were also founding members. And a picture of Marjorie. A picture of Mike. And also Don Gillespie in June. But all three people were about in their 90s. And a picture of Don on his mountain.
Yay.
So we'll slide in, unless anybody's got anything to say, we'll slide into the BMN year in review and what else people did during COVID-19. So we'll start off with Brian Wormold's photos. And Brian, if you want to talk to any of them, you can. So Brian spent a lot of time this year on the West Hill Park Rotary Loop Trail. So this was the kiosk that was there. The roof wasn't looking so good, so some work had to be done on that. In the early stages, Victoria, Cleon, and Elaine went through the park and identified some plants and animals. And a new roof was being put on the structure. And they had a lot of volunteer events as well. And some machinery, I think, was supplied by the city of Port Moody to put down a gravel bed for the pathway. And they had lots of volunteers there to wheelbarrow and to spread the gravel around.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yes. Hard work, but good time.
Yeah, great community activity, and so proud that the Rotary Club of Port Moody, Burke Mountain Naturalists, the City of Port Moody, Scouts Canada, the College Park Community Association all came together to want to upgrade the trail to make it safe, and so everybody in the community could enjoy it. The people in wheelchairs, it became a city gem. So
yeah, and the idea of the gravel was to make it wheelchair accessible.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'd be very hard to roll.
And also, boxes were put up in the park, and some bird boxes. I believe this was a nuthatch box.
Oh, which
And,
park is that, Ian?
this is the West Hill Hill Park Rotary Loop Trail, which is, if you know where West Hill Park is, it's up in College Park in Port Moody.
Okay, thank you.
Glen Air Drive. Yeah.
I should also add that all of the nest boxes were built by Gordon Mayenberg, and his wife kindly donated her artistic services in hand painting most of the little animals featured on the nest boxes.
Yeah, so each one's got what's supposed to go in that box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a Douglas squirrel, not a flying squirrel, but Ian was kind enough to put them up.
Yeah,
A great
community inclusive project, and yeah.
And this was a flicker box and a robin box, American robin. And also later on in the project, there was a split rail fencing that went in. Wow. Makes it look very professional.
Yeah, they decommissioned some of the trails to make it a circular trail as well. And they've also put in some native plants I see.
Yeah, I've got some photos of that coming up.
Oh, okay.
There we go, John. Just ahead of yourself there. So we've yeah, I've got some planting of native plants to sort of cut off some of the trails that they don't want being used. So this photo showing all the pots all in sort of place of where they wanted the plants to be put in, and then the plants are in them magically.
Can I add a little bit?
You betcha, Cleon.
Yeah. Thanks to Burke Mountain Naturalists, there's the first draft of an interpretive signage that'll go in, and Seaview Elementary is also creating a sign package, and Ian is is building the numbered signs that will go throughout the trail, and the goal is to have changing signage all the time because the audience is mostly static. So the signs will keep changing, and it'll be different groups that will be writing signs over time. So it should be fun that way.
Great. Yeah, it's looking great. And then also I imagine John was there with his bat display.
Yes, and did a couple of bat evenings. It was fabulous. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
And then also Brian went on some hikes. He really and looking into Vancouver and over top of the gravel pits in Eagle Ridge. And then actually looking at Coquitlam Lake with Eagle Ridge and Eagle Peak or Mount Beautiful in the background.
Oh, there's the dam.
And then, yep, back there, the dam is on the left side. And on the way down, we stopped by Sawblade Falls. And then we're lucky enough that we can drive through the Great Gate. And this was some trail work we were doing up near Dennett Lake. So we parked up near the Village Trail or the Village Lake Trail. And if anybody's been up to the sort of the intersection of Gunners Trail and the Village to Lake Trail and have seen this sort of pile of rocks there, I've wondered what it was. I know for a couple of years, I kind of wondered what it was. The pile was building over the years. And Dean, one of the fellow volunteers for doing trail work, was up there one day and actually saw somebody that he kind of remotely knew that he was carrying a couple of rocks up there. And what this guy does for exercise, he hikes up from the bottom, and when he gets to the power lines, he picks up a couple of rocks, and then he carries them up another quite a distance up to this point here, and then piles them up. So not sure what the idea is, but anyways, that's how the rocks got there. And so we were working on the trail between the Monroe Lake viewpoint and Dennett Lake. It's looking pretty good now. And then for lunch, we stopped off at the Monroe Lake viewpoint. It's a great place to sit and have lunch and just take in the views, looking down at Monroe Lake. Now, Monroe Lake has a, you can see my cursor here, has a dam over in this section here that was breached back in the 70s, I believe. And this used to be all water here. It's kind of the shape of a J. And since the dam was breached, the lake has gone back to a more sort of natural setting, where when you first come, if you hike up to Monroe Lake from Quarry Road, you come out to a little pond, and that's this pond here. And then there's a bit of a gap of water, and then you kind of get the middle lake, and then just around the corner here that you can't see, there's another lake as well.
Filled up with all the snow.
And then on the way to Dennett Lake, there's a nice little pond. And then this is Dennett Lake. And then from Dennett Lake, we took the connector back to the Village Lake, and there's some beautiful sort of hanging ponds along the way. And then back to the Village Trail. Just interesting photos showing the sort of the different signage along the Village Trail. This sort of reddy orange sign saying to Monroe Lake. Those signs must be 30 or 40 years old, and they were put up by the cabin owners, as well as the markers over to the left that they were also put up by the cabin owners somewhere between 5 and 7 years ago. And then the marker on the far right is a sign that I made probably 5 years ago or something like that. And then on another trip, Brian went up on his own to Monroe Lake. And if you look in the background, you see this sort of rocky bluff there. That is the Monroe Lake viewpoint, where I was showing those beautiful photos of Monroe Lake from. So Brian was up there on kind of a day with a lot of dew.
Yes.
You can see the moisture on the blueberries.
Mm.
And this was the middle lake, as I showed in that other photo. Brian didn't make it all the way to the far lake on this day because the bush was just too wet and the trail was too overgrown. But Brian and I went back, I guess maybe a month or two later, and cleared out the trail, or most of the trail, to the far lake. So it's much better now. And BC Parks helicoptered in some posts that eventually will be put in the ground, and some signage will be put on them. And the weirdest thing that I think I've seen in quite a while, when Brian sent me the photos, I'm going, dentures on the trail up at Monroe Lake? What's the deal with that? And my next thought was, where's the body?
Oh dear.
But as Brian pointed out, nothing else, just the dentures. So we don't know what the reasoning is, but they're sitting on a rock right on the trail by Monroe Lake. So if anybody's missing some dentures, we know where they are. And there was also sort of a walk for Marjorie and Mike Griffin out at Duboville Slough. I believe that was in September, if I remember right. And so the family organized that, and a few sort of family and friends came out for a nice little walk along Duboville Slough. And then in late October, we went into the Mamquam area to work on a road that we used to drive in the 90s called E100. And so this is Roy and Kurt. Kurt came down from Whistler to help out. And so we were working on the road. Sorry, going the wrong way. And so this is the road that we used to drive, what it looked like before we started clearing most of it. So quite overgrown, and we were lucky that there weren't leaves on the trees. It made it a lot easier. And when we cleared out some, it started looking like this. So it's quite walkable now. But we didn't get all of it done. And this at the end where you can kind of see what I call the wall, because up until a few years ago, this was as far as you were able to drive. So this section sort of stayed cleared out, but just beyond this, there was a washout. So people haven't been able to drive the length of the road for many, many years. But we did work on some of that to clear it out. And we had 5 people out on that day, and 3 people went home that day, but Brian and I stayed overnight and camped. It got down to probably about -5 at night, so it was a little bit cool, but nice and dry in the morning, but beautiful sunsets. And the next day we'd hoped to get to November Lake, but we didn't quite make it that far because we were busy doing some trail work and clearing out some creeks that were a little bit deep that we're able to unplug, and so some waterfalls along the way. And this is just before you kind of get to the end of the road. This road also leads to the Fool's Gold Trail that you can either go to the head of Pitt Lake or to Coquitlam if you're inclined. It's very, very, I wouldn't exactly call it a trail. It's a route and very difficult. And then we got to November Creek. And it was so cold at night that quite a few of the rocks had ice on top of them. So it was quite slippery. And the creek was fairly high too, so it would have been difficult to cross. And this is showing the road on the other side where there used to be a bridge. So back in the 90s, I remember actually being able to drive across this on a bridge across this creek. But when they deactivated the road, they took the bridge out. And then on our drive out, it was beautiful weather, snow-capped mountains. This was actually Halloween when we were coming out. So as some people say, we had a spooktacular day. So we'll go to Edie's photos, and I think Kathy Lako will talk a little bit about Como Lake. Sorry, there, Kathy?
Just unmuting. Here we are in the parts of Como Lake that people don't usually go into, and it's behind the fence on the north end. And we are looking for seed pods of the yellow flag iris, which is this really tall, thin, grassy bits. And I have iris plants in my garden, and the seed pods are right on the top. They're really easy to find, but these ones are flopped on the ground because they're really heavy. So we spent quite a bit of time looking for them. That's Lori in the background. That's Liz Struntham in the middle, and there's Edie in the front with the bucket. You can see we're putting the seed heads in the bucket because someone from the city is counting all of them, and they have mapped all the areas around Como Lake that have this yellow flag iris, which is an invasive plant growing. So they're going to be trying to control these plants by various means. Cutting the seed pod heads before they can sprout. Another method is covering them with black plastic to kind of smother them out. And another thing that we were thinking of doing was digging them out, but we haven't been asked to help out with that. So this is a project that they're working on, and we were very happy to help them out. I don't know if this is the only photo you've got. I think you've got one more.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, this was something that we found along the way. I couldn't tell you what it is. Any
I was thinking it was a caterpillar of some kind, but
Some kinds, yes, but what kind, I don't know. We were really bushwhacking it there and it was kind of wet. I had a great day. We were wet and tired. Our feet were a little bit wet, but it was a great day of working. And in some parts, the ground was really mushy. So we found branches to put on the ground and then step on the branches. Like we were making our own little bridges and footpaths. I just remember it was a really great day. Next photo. Yes,
Yeah,
and this is a photo someone took and I need help with this one. I don't know what this is either.
Victoria and I were thinking it might be purple loosestrife, but we're not sure.
Oh, I think we talked about.
Yes, it was.
Yes,
Okay.
thanks, Lori.
Lori talking here.
Good.
And the city was not happy to find out about it, but we were glad that they did.
Perfect. And I think that's just a photo. That's anything else to say on that?
No, but thanks to Marianne Fernandez who invited us out and hopefully we'll be back and we can control some of that yellow flag iris.
Great. And so Michelle and Ty, if you want to speak to your photographs.
Okay.
Michelle and Ty, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute. So this spring, Ty and I got out to quite a few little spots near Victoria, and it was a really good year for wildflowers. So these are fairy slippers.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking you're advancing. I got to advance the photos.
Okay, this is our back deck. And we have a pair of California quail that like to visit. And
On the
we also
bottom
have in the lower right-hand corner,
Oh, right.
That's
yes,
a California quail. Usually comes with his wife, but this time he didn't. And we also have a squirrel that likes to visit up in the upper left corner. And they have a tendency to sit together while they're picking out seeds and stuff that the other birds have dropped from the feeder. And
And
they
what were their
sat
names?
there that day for about 10 minutes together.
And you had some names for them.
Oh, yes. Okay. So the the quail is Dan Quail with help from Deanna. And the squirrel's name is Chunky. Just because it's like, it was the plumpest squirrel that I've ever seen. That, and he likes to go and raid our suet. We like to go over to Fort Rod Hill, which has the Fiskard Lighthouse. And in the summer around here, it's really low tide. So we got some really good, we got some really good photos of different things that we found at low tide. And the kind of funky looking brown thing in the middle is a gooey duck.
Huh.
How big is that, Michelle?
It was like good double fish size. It was sizable. And we saw several gooey duck that day. We don't know how far it went into the ground itself, because those things can be really, really, really long.
Mhm.
And then when we were walking on the beach, we thought, next slide, we thought it was just like this. We were worried that there was a dead seal on the beach.
Mm.
But apparently, because the weather was so hot, this was just after the heat dome, the weather was so hot and the tide was so low that that particular seal was coming back every day to bury himself. And you could see him breathing as you got closer. But at first it's like, oh, we can't go over there, there's a dead seal. Then we walk past and there's a sign saying, please don't bother the seal.
He's sleeping. He's not dead.
Yeah, just having a good snooze. And that thing that's drooping over there, the yellow thing that's drooping over there, we believe was a gooey duck, but we are not sure. I tried to find different things. It looked really weird. And as we got closer, this is why we thought it was a geoduck, because when we looked online, you can see that there are photos of other geoduck that look like that. But Dave Montanet or anybody else, if you want to correct us, because I am not 100% sure, it just looked like some of the other photos on iNature and other places. And that was not as big as you would think it, getting really close to that. Then what was, getting really close to that. So that was only like fist size. And then this is just an assortment of different barnacles and shells that we saw. One of them I think is, I can't remember, it's some kind of limpet or something. Because there were like 4 different kinds of barnacles over just in that one little area. And it was kind of interesting because we'd never seen them actually open and close as much as they did that day. And I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of those, but those are barnacles. So I think the nickname for them is gooseneck barnacles, and apparently they're very delicious, but I was not going to take a chance. They look really strange. At first we thought it was some kind of shellfish. And when the tide is way out, the starfish are alive and well, and I took a really close look and none of them seemed to have wasting disease. So I was kind of happy to see that, because those were pretty well the first starfish that we've seen over in our neck of the woods. So I don't think they're making a really big comeback over here just yet.
Just a comment about the gooseneck barnacles. They grow on long stalks, which is how they got the name of gooseneck. They tend to, I used to scuba dive, and you'd see them in areas where there's a lot of swell and a lot of rough water, and they just sort of move actually in the swell.
Oh,
So
that's super.
Think of barnacles as a shell attached to the rock, but they've got a flexible neck and then the shell on the end of the neck. So they're kind of cool to see when you're actually diving underwater.
I would think that they would be really, really super cool. I mean, we went quite a ways out. Usually where these gooseneck barnacles were located, that's the first time that we've ever seen anything out of water. They're usually completely covered in water. And this was over at John Dean Park. It's northern part of the island, northern part of the South Island. That's hard to say. And it was just a really different kind of water lily. John Dean Park is actually a lot larger than we thought. And they have some really nice signage there. You could probably spend a good, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours just exploring little tiny trails and finding different things. So I'd never ever seen a water lily that looked quite like that before. So I don't know what kind of water lily it is. And the signage just said that it was a water lily. That's one nice thing about a lot of the trails that you go on over here. There's lots of signage. This is a mother teaching her little ones how to fish just over by Fiskard Lighthouse. And it was just kind of fun to sit and watch her hang out with her little ones. They were there for quite a while, and we just stood. And what's funny to us is we stood and we were watching these raccoons, and there were people just walking back behind us, not even looking at what we were looking at, just going about their business. Meanwhile, these guys were fishing and having a great time, which kind of then accounted for finding tons of mussel shells all over the place.
You don't usually associate raccoons with the ocean, so.
No, you don't. You wouldn't think that they would go fishing, but these guys did.
If you've ever kayaked, you often see raccoons on the beaches or on the rocks beside the water.
We didn't when we were kayaking this summer, but I think maybe it's because the seals were taking over the rocks and the raccoons didn't want to bug them. This we're not too sure of. It was a little, we think it's a tree sparrow and not a house sparrow. that was visiting our feeder quite a bit. And the interesting thing is she was really tiny and she was being picked on by some of the other sparrows and some of the other birds. So she would come and visit the feeder when we were sitting out there because the other birds wouldn't come around. So she just kind of felt pretty safe to come and have her dinner when we were there. And she visited with us all summer long. And did we name her? Anyhow, this is a Wilson's warbler. And the most amazing thing with this that I've found with this is we were sitting in the back, just on our little porch, and this yellow thing flew by. And I said, yellow. And Ty looked at me and I said, it would be so cool if it came over here. Well, this is our little portable bird bath that Ty made out of just the top of a plastic container and was putting some rocks in so that the birds would be able to hop around in it. The Wilson warbler came over, sat down, did a little showering thing. I've got like a whole little video of this bird just hanging out there. And that distance between where we would be sitting and the Wilson's warbler, probably maybe 1.5 feet. And it was just super comfortable, taking a bath, hanging out. I've never been that close to a Wilson's warbler before.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Oh, can I ask a question about the rocks in the because I have something I bought at the bird food store, a wild bird center, and it's supposed to be a bird bath, but I just have squirrels drinking the water. Like rocks, will rocks in the water be more of an attractant to birds, do you think?
We found that they were, to the point where the crows would come, all the birds. I mean, the crows would come in, the sparrows, the juncos, everybody would come in and like either take a bath or take a drink. And sometimes you see like 3 or 4 birds around it. And the crows would come in and they rearrange the rocks. And there were a couple of gifts that the crows brought us to put in the bird bath.
They did leave some things. But I think what happens is they don't like to walk around in something slippery like that. So I covered the entire bottom with little pebbles.
Yeah.
And then I put in a few of the large ones, and they seem to like to just stand on the rocks while they're taking a bath.
Okay, so I'll dig around for a bridge mixture of rocks.
I just got them from the beach.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks. So smooth and rough are okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get a couple
Yeah,
of those.
and then we found that, what was it? The white rocks were a little bit more attractive to them than the darker rocks.
Okay, thanks.
So I don't know, could be,
Maybe
it
I
could
got
just be
lucky
our
with the
birds.
crows. Thanks.
All right, Susan, if you want to talk about your photos.
Okay, so I guess these are American dipper photos. So this is along the salmon spawning channels in Coquitlam River Park. And especially right after the chum have spawned, the dippers are there. And I think there's one a little bit later of one eating a salmon egg, but they love these fast flowing streams, and they dive, they swim. It seems to be, and this that is dipper poo.
Oh, okay.
So
I wonder what it was.
If I see dipper poo on a log or a rock, then I know, okay, you've got to really look here, because dippers can be very, very difficult to see. They spend a lot of time down in the water, and they move a lot. So they're hard to photograph, but that's the indication, dipper poo. Oh, and that's just a kingfisher. Lots of kingfishers along the ponds and the streams. Oh, and I love this photo because it shows, this was after the big rainstorm, and the water was really fast. And that little dipper is clinging to a slippery log. with the water just flowing over it, and it's hanging on.
Yeah, I've seen, or Jeff and I have seen dippers on extremely slippery rocks, and
Mhm,
just walking up these rocks with this quite a bit of current, coming
mhm.
over top of the rocks, and it's amazing the traction that they have.
Yeah.
And so I think, oh, anything else to add, Susan?
Oh, I guess, okay, I had some photos with them eating a salmon egg,
Okay,
but I guess that's not in this collection. Okay.
okay, sorry.
I've got them in mine. I'll cover them
Okay.
with.
Okay. Okay, so we'll get to my photos. I'll go through them fairly quickly as we're getting a little bit late. So Colony Farm, they were having the Trans Mountain pipeline. So I went down there the day before they were shutting it down. So March 8th through, it's being closed from March 8th and no access to Colony Farm. And so went along the back road, and it was all flooded. So we weren't able to walk the complete length of it. Some sections of it were dry, but it was nice to go down there before they closed it down. And this was a hike up on Sugar Mountain, looking down at Sassmat Lake and out to the Burrard Inlet. And this was in June, and couldn't believe how warm the water was in Sassmat Lake for June. And just looking at the people, even during COVID times, the beach at Sassmat or at White Pine Beach was just packed. And we found a nice place along the trail that we were able to go in the water and stay away from the people. And then a bike ride down at Colony Farm on the Sheep Paddock Trail. Great place to walk and see the Coquitlam River. The Coquitlam River kind of just looks like glass. And then closer to the Red Bridge, looking over the old sort of salmon enhancement area. I remember this being really wooded with cottonwood trees at one time, but once they made the salmon enhancement area, it killed off all the large cottonwood trees. And then out at Belcarra, this is looking from Cod Rock out towards Burnaby and Vancouver and North Vancouver. And this year I did a lot of presentations for the city of Coquitlam, some hiking presentations, as well as identifying plants and animals and that. And so I really went out and investigated a lot of the trails. And this is the Admiralty Point Trail. And I knew that there were what they called squatters that had been in the area since about the 1920s. But if you take your time and really look around and go off the trail a little bit, you find a lot of places where there's sections where you can see where old homesteads used to be. And this is one at Periwinkle Notch, very narrow trail going off the main trail and down some stone steps. And then you get out to a lovely sort of rocky area. This is between Cod Rock and Admiralty Point. And you can see the eye bolts where at one time they used to dock the ships or log booms. And again, at Periwinkle Notch, is perfect area for bringing in a kayak or a boat, a protected little cove. And you can see in the foreground one of the old sort of call them eye bolts or connecting points for the ships, that this one spends most of its time underwater, and it's rusted a lot over the years. And then something I'd never noticed at Admiralty Point was in the background. You can see this cement ledge here, which would have been a connecting point for ships to come into for some sort of like gangplank. But also around this tree, some heavy chain that's grown into the tree. And then you get to see that sort of cement sort of attachment onto the shore, where there's some steel pieces here that look like it would have been a gangplank to get onto a ship. And then if the tide is low, you can walk around Admiralty Point to the point where you're looking to the east, which is quite nice. You can actually go through the forest and get there as well, but it's hard to find. And then on this day, stop by Woodhaven Swamp. I hadn't been there in years, or not out of the parking lot anyways, but I was quite surprised how nice it was. And then up on Eagle Ridge, the trail called the Dentist. The sign's been up there for a long time, and you can see some of the letters are missing on it, and you can see as nature takes over, some of the letters the tree is taking in. Along the Dentist, there's some nice waterfalls. And then this sign that you can see up in the top right on the Village Lake Trail. Now that sign was probably made somewhere in the early to mid 90s. It sat at Don Gillespie's place for years and years and years. And then he gave it to me, and it sat in my garage for probably close to 10 years. And then finally this year, we got it up on a tree. So it's now mounted up where the Village Trail goes off the Monroe Lake Trail. And this is Monroe Lake when you first come out to the first pond. And as I'd mentioned in Brian's photo, this rocky outcrop up at the top there is where the viewpoint is to look down onto Monroe Lake. And I always knew that there was sundew at Dennett Lake, but somebody had told me that there was also sundew at Monroe Lake, but I'd never seen it. But this day I did find it. So it's right by that first little pond. There's a fair amount of it there. And just a bit of a close-up. And if people aren't familiar with a sundew, it's actually a coniferous plant, like the Venus flytrap. And I think over on the right-hand side here, there's actually a bug inside, and so the tentacles of the sundew have actually closed in on the bug. And then this photo here, you can see that sort of, sap or moisture on the end of each sort of tentacle that traps the bugs and insects that touch it. And then this year, with all the sort of identifying plants in that I was extremely happy that I was finally able to tell the difference between Hooker's Fairy Bell and Twisted Stalk. So the main giveaway for Twisted Stalk, that's what this is that the berries and the flowers actually come off on a little stem that has a kink in it, and the flowers come off underneath the leaves. Where on the Hooker's Fairy Bell, the flowers are at the end of the stalk. So this is Monroe Creek. Bit of a difficult place to get into. I was in there early in the year with Jeff Rudd, and then I went back again with Sean. And in this case here, we were same waterfall, but in this case, Sean and I were actually going to go up to Monroe Lake, following Monroe Creek, which is a bushwhacking. We actually did it as a club hike way back in, I think, the early 2000s. Sorry, I'm going backwards. That's why. So made it up to the dam at Monroe Lake. So this is on the back side of the dam, and this is from the top of the dam looking across Monroe Lake. But our trip wasn't finished there. What our goal was to bushwhack over to Benny Lake. So we went around the right side of the lake and went through this area here, and then eventually into about this pocket here where the lake is located. So this is the part of the dam, the cement dam that was breached. And then this was kind of funny. I talked to Sean ahead of time. I said, well, what would you like to do on your birthday? He says, a good bushwhacking trip would be great. So that's why we picked this idea of going to Benny Lake. And just so funny, along the way, we found one of those balloons that people let go, and it was a happy birthday balloon. So Sean got a happy birthday balloon on his birthday. And we made it to Stewart Creek, which comes out of Benny Lake. So we're happy about that. And we watered up before we headed up a little bit of uphill towards Benny Lake. And we came into Benny Lake, the back side of it. So on the outfall side. So normally if you're going to get to Benny Lake, you would come from the Ridge Trail and you would come down in this sort of section over here. So anyways, from here, we walk around the lake on this side, and there was a fair amount of snow still at the lake. This was in early July. And years ago, we put up a wood sign for Benny Lake, but it's been missing for at least 5 or 7 years. It's been missing. So when we went this time, put up some aluminum tags on the same tree that the old sign had been on, and so just identifying it that it's in honor of Doug Benny. And that's a view of Benny Lake looking down just before we're going to climb back up to the Ridge Trail. And then another adventure was to go to Widgeon Peak. So we went up the Burke Widgeon connector, and we went up to an old lookout called the Widgeon Bowl Lookout. When I was, I think it was 11 years ago, the sign was still attached to the tree, but now it's on the ground. But we hope to put it back up on the tree at some point. But the viewpoint is long gone. But this was our sort of starting point of a real adventure where we were going to bushwhack up to Widgeon Peak. It had been something I'd looked at for years and years, and so finally we did it this year. So it's very steep going up, all in old growth forest. I thought that there might be a chance for a future trail up this way, but I don't think so. It's just too steep.
Like there's a uniform.
And then once we
Oh, wow.
once we came out of the trees, getting close to the subsummit of Widgeon Peak, we're looking back down on the Widgeon Slough and Grant Narrows back over here, and all the Pit Polder sort of wetlands, and the Pit River, of course. So we basically started at sea level, pretty much where we started to climb up. So this is looking from the Widgeon Peak subsummit and looking at the main peak. So we still had to get up to the summit on this day. What's interesting is we were up on the subsummit last year as well, and last year we found a garment bag and just laying there, and we took it back with us. But we thought, okay, someone's come up here to help her and had their wedding or something here. And then funny enough, this year when we were on the subsummit, I found a tall champagne glass. So a couple of things that we found up there in a couple different years of people going up there to have their wedding vows, I guess. Oh, backwards. And then from the summit of Widgeon Peak, looking over at Gabbro Peak, list of ones to do, and that's beyond Gabbro Peak. You're looking into where Widgeon Lake is, and also you can see Coquitlam Mountain from there, and the Ore Creek drainage, which goes down this way. And then up on top, the heather was flowering. And I've been up on Widgeon Peak, I guess, 4 times, and pretty much every time I've gone a slightly different way to the summit. I haven't figured out exactly which is the best way to go up and down, but at some point, there's different pieces of flagging around, but nobody seems to really go, or different people that go up there go different ways every time. And then this was a midweek hike on the Diaz Vistas Trail. It was a quite hot day, and I was extremely surprised because the Diaz Vistas Trail can be extremely busy. We only saw 3 people on the actual Diaz Vistas Trail. We saw quite a few people once we got back down to Bunsen Lake, but I was amazed to only see 3 people on the trail. This is showing a photo of a Douglas fir tree on the right and a western white pine tree on the left. It's very scaly. You get a few western white pines on the Diaz Vistas Trail as well as Sugar Mountain Trail. And it's always, whenever you see these cones on the ground, sure signs that there's a western white pine around, and just look for that scaly bark. So down, once you've almost finished the Diaz Vistas part of the trail, there's an interesting stump that's got quite a few trees growing out of it. That'd be a nurse stump. And the suspension bridge, I believe, is still out of commission. I think they're rebuilding it, but we were lucky enough to be able to go over it. I believe this was in August when we did it. And then somewhere in the fall, they shut it down. Also got out in the canoe from Belcarra Beach. We went around by Jug Island and then into Bedwell Bay. And then we portaged from there back to the Belcarra parking lot. And you can see the popular Jug Island Beach on the left. And then these photos were taking an evening walk up at a place called Nisconolith Lake, which is east of Kamloops, and just some beautiful, beautiful colors.
Wow.
And then this was a trip over to Victoria. We saw Michelle and Ty over there, and Ty and I went for a hike up onto Mill Hill. And we're looking, I believe it's to the east and towards downtown Victoria. And with the arbutus trees in the foreground.
Mm.
And we walked on an old railway along the way. I thought was quite interesting.
Mm.
And this was a sunset photo from Rathtrevor Beach. Got some takeout fish and chips and sat on the beach and watched a beautiful sunset. And then I don't know if other people saw these moths that were around sort of in the late summer, but boy, someplace I went, there was hundreds, if not thousands of them. I don't know if anybody knows what type of moth they are.
They're hemlock looper.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Great. Not
Yes,
great, but
good year,
but it-
for them.
and it is natural. They are naturals.
Mhm.
They're on a 10-year cycle.
Right. So hopefully that's it. Sorry. And Brian and I did show photos of the Mount Gillespie area, but when we did a show and share, but I'll show a few we go through. That's Pine Cone Lake with Little Pine Cone Lake in the sort of middle and the back. This is the Little Pine Cone.
with you.
And that's Gillespie Mountain with the 5 fingers in the background. And that's the ridge leading up to Gillespie Mountain. Getting a bit closer. And the summit. So the top sign was put up there with the Gillespie family back in 1994. And it was getting weathered, and I was afraid that it was going to break and disappear. So I made up a new sign, and I've taken the old sign back down to keep and to bring out on special occasions, and it's been replaced with a newer sign.
Yeah.
So on the summit, and a photo looking from the summit with the 5 fingers on the right-hand side, and Golden Ears, and then Mount Baker in the background. And for November 11th, got out in the canoe again in Port Moody Inlet. The tide was quite high. I'm sure it's been higher before because I've seen photos of it over top of the shoreline sort of wood boardwalk, but it was still fairly high. And we saw some killdeer over by the mill site. And there's probably people that know this area better than me, but I don't usually see sort of water all around the old mill site like this. So I guess depends on the tide.
That would probably have been the week of the king tides.
It could have been. It was November 11th is when it was.
I think that was a king tide week. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I did know because I was checking some other things and the tides were quite high. And as you know,
And the 6th was a high time.
I was going to say it's still quite high now because I always liked the lower path to the pier at Rocky Point, and I still can't walk through it. It's totally covered with water. It's the first time I've ever seen that in the last 7 years. So the water's level is still high at Rocky Point Park.
and as you all know that we got a lot of rain and high river flows. This is the Coquitlam River with Scott Creek in the background. And finish up with some trail maintenance photos from the Pinecombe Burke Stewards. We got going pretty early, still snow up on the peaks around the Widgeon Bowl area. So this is the Burke Widgeon connector. We did a lot of work on that trail this year. Beautiful views from there, looking over towards Golden Ears and down towards the Widgeon Slough area. And we had a fair crew on some of the days. A lot of work in the bowl area, pulling up the ferns and the salmonberry. It had been for years had been so overgrown that now hopefully it's going to last for a while. Lyle Litzenberger used to go up there every couple of years and clean it out, but I was up there a few times with him, and it's a lot of work. But I think this year the work that we did will make it last for a lot longer. That rock on the left side, it was absolutely covered in salmonberry, so it just grows on everything. And interesting stump along the way.
Umbrella.
And even Deanna got out with the Pulaski axe and cutting out some logs on the woodland walk. And this was a big log that came down on the ridge trail, which this log came down just north of the south summit on Burke. And so we went back. It doesn't look near as big when it's been cut and it's laying kind of on the ground, but it was quite the obstacle before we cut it out. And we worked on the village trail as well, or the village lake trail. And on this trip, we found some pretty interesting mushrooms. I think this photo got shown at one of the meetings, but I'm showing it again here. It's pretty cool. I kind of look at it as a family of mushrooms.
Yeah.
And a little bit of chainsaw work at Dennett Lake, the outflow. And then if anybody remembers David Hennessy, he used to be a member of BMN years ago and did a lot of trail work and hiking with me. And he happened to be over from France for a month. So he got out on a trail maintenance trip up to Dennett Lake. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Janet and Rich made the slideshow, and we have a person that's making some incredible bridges on the lower loop of the Woodland Walk. I think I know who it is, but I haven't confirmed it yet. But if you go up there, some pretty incredible bridges that have been made. And I'm just showing this picture. This is on the Halvard London Trail, just above the Polytrichum Lookout. So this is a yellow cedar that was cut out with an axe, and you can see the other portion of it here. Now, there's this sort of this. I don't know really call it a rumor, but there's a guy that's known as the Axe Man that's out on the trails in that area, and I'm pretty sure he was responsible for cutting this one out. This was one that we had to duck under for quite a while, and that's a huge undertaking to cut that out with an axe. And you can see even on the ground some huge chips that were cut out. So If anybody meets the Axeman on the trail, you'll thank him for me.
I
I've
have
yet to meet him.
I have met Axeman a couple of
And
times.
who's that talking?
Rich.
Oh, Rich. Okay, you have met him. Okay.
Yeah, yep. And he's for real, and that's the kind of thing he loves to do.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to talk to you about him sometime, Rich. And then on this day, we went up to the White Rock viewpoint, and probably about four inches of snow. And looking in towards Vancouver, we did a little bit of trail work on the White Rock viewpoint trail, and again looking into Vancouver, and looking out towards the Pitt River and the Fraser River. And I believe this is the end of Douglas Island here, Pitt Meadows, and then the like Surrey Bend kind of area. I believe is what that is. It's a confluence of the Pitt River and the Fraser River. And then we'll get on to John's photos.
Ian, I'm just mindful of the time, and I've documented about 20 to 30 BMN activities.
Yeah, don't worry about time, John. Just carry on.
No, I think it'd be, in fairness, I don't want to keep people on. It might take over half an hour to go through these, that I'd certainly be willing to perhaps show them at a show and share. I think it might be a better situation.
Great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to go? How about going through the? If people want to leave the meeting, they can.
No, I. In fairness, there's some of them require some explanation, and I just feel a bit better if we put them off because there's over 33 slides, and there's a lot of in-depth discussion that we could have on some of them and some interesting findings.
Okay. So I'll just quickly go through them then.
No, please. I'd rather show them at a show and share.
Yeah. I'm just gonna fly.
Yes, you say. Who says hi? Who says? Oh yeah.
Okay. So is Ron Long on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Ian.
Okay. I
Yeah,
did throw your photos in.
In the this morning, Port Moody got quite a heavy dump of snow, and so the snow gave me some new situations to photograph on my patio. So these are just a few pictures from this morning, taken from my kitchen. I showed you some other pictures from there before.
And if you want me to go back, Ron, I can. I'll just go through them. So.
Yeah, we had two.
So we started off. Chestnut back chickadee.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I'm assuming everybody was familiar with them, but yeah.
No, it's always good to tell people.
Two Anna's hummingbirds competing. We have had the last few crummy weather days. We've had an amazing amount of birds on the patio. These are just this morning, but the last few days, just for example, I wrote down a list of what I was seeing all at the same time. 3 Steller's jays, several song sparrows, 4 spotted towies, and 5 varied thrushes, and maybe a dozen of each juncos and chickadees. It was quite amazing.
I think you can make a song out of that.
Yeah, if I lived in South America, I could charge money for people to come in and sit and look at my birds. That's what families do down there.
And
so
dark-eyed junco.
Dark-eyed junco, yeah.
And the varied thrush.
I always look forward to the first varied thrush arriving in the fall.
And a spotted towhee.
Yes, they're around pretty much year round, but to see 4 of them on the patio at the same time is unusual. And I just enjoy sitting there with the camera, and when one of them chooses to pose on on a perch, I photograph them. And I never get tired of doing that.
Very nice.
And, but yesterday I had something really unusual happen. When I was having breakfast in the kitchen, I counted 7 squirrels scoffing up my sunflower seed. That's a record. I've never had that many at the same time.
Eastern gray squirrels?
Black and gray squirrels, yes.
Yeah.
About an hour later, I just happened to walk into the kitchen just in time to see a bobcat dash out of the bush, grab one of the squirrels, and dash back into the bush.
Wow.
Welcome to the Port Moody wilderness.
Wow.
I have seen that bobcat before. It's a young animal. I saw it as a kitten earlier in the spring. The crows were making a heck of a racket in the ravine behind the house. And I finally went out to look, and it took a while, but I saw this little pussy face. Well, he's growing up and still around. So that's kind of interesting.
That's wonderful.
Great. Thanks, Ron.
Anyway, never a dull moment around here as far as the birds are concerned.
And the animals.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thanks to the people that contributed photographs. And I guess I'll turn it back over to Victoria.
Okay. And I will do the screen share again. Thank you very much, Ian, for pulling that together. Lovely. I just can't wait for the warmer weather.
Yeah, and I really do apologize to John, because that is my fault for I put in too many photos, not thinking that there would be as much.
It will work
discussion
out
as there was,
perfectly.
so.
It's another evening. We'll enjoy that. And thanks to all the other contributors as well. Some really, really nice photos there. So now we have one more bit of fun for you, and that is the BMN Door Prize. And again, if you were on the at the AGM evening in December last year, you'll be familiar with this festive Excel worksheet. And what I've got here are all the BMN memberships listed alphabetically by their last name. And I'm just going to have to get rid of some of our pictures here. So here's Sarah Aardvark. That's not really her last name. And we go down and we've got Sean Zygote, and they're numbered sequentially from 1 to 161.
And these aren't just the people to hear, these are all our members.
All our members.
Right.
That's right. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a draw for, well, you can't see, no point holding it up, but the door prize is a $25 gift certificate for the Backyard Bird Store in Newport Village in Port Moody. And I'm going to let the Excel spreadsheet make the draw by using this little bit of a formula. It's an Excel formula. And what this does, it tells Excel to draw a random number between 1 and 161. So that makes sense, right? So it's totally random. I don't even have to close my eyes and put my hands in a hat. I'm going to copy this little formula up in there. I'm just going to remove a little tag that makes it so we can see it. And when I push enter, we're going to have a random number drawn. So a drum roll and enter. And it's number 56. Well, let's see who number 56 is.
Roll down.
Who's the lucky winner? 56. 56.
And
Andreas. And let's see what Andreas's last name is.
Uh-oh.
Gunster. Is Andreas on the call? Perhaps not.
I didn't see that name.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm going to pop the gift card in the mail to Andreas. I'll do that tomorrow. They'll certainly be surprised. I'll have to put an explanatory note. But so that's the door prize for this year. Congratulations to Andreas. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Andreas, probably.
Andreas, perhaps, yeah. And I will stop the screen share and maybe we can see each other again. So does anyone else have anything to say just before we close up for the year?
I have a couple of photos, wildlife sightings from the other side of the planet. It's only 3 or 4 shots.
Go for it.
If there's time to share. Okay.
Go for it.
Okay.
So you have to make him a co-host if you haven't.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I logged into the account, so I should be
okay. Right. Yeah. So you're already in. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I'll just share my screen. And there we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
You started, but you're not there yet. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Okay. So let's move on. And
sightings.
Actually, Susan, there's a couple of yours here too. So you've already been through a couple of these, but here's the one that was missing.
Oh, that one I didn't see.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's amazing.
And that's a good photo.
Yeah, it is.
Cute little bottom on it.
Yeah.
So Susan was the only one who sent me some photos. So I thought, well, I'd add a few more from my current GPS location. So, which is in Western Sydney, Blue Mountains area. So, here's another one of Susan's.
Yep. That's the kingfisher with the.
It's a kookaburra.
Not cool.
What? I don't know
Similar.
if anybody can say what kind of fish that is. I don't know.
Jeff, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a sculpin.
Okay.
A prickly sculpin or a coastwise sculpin.
Yeah, looks pretty tasty. To a
They got
kingfisher.
pretty nasty spines, actually.
Kingfisher.
Yeah.
It's a kingfisher.
Not who said that he would cook about.
A belted kingfisher.
Yeah, we're still in Coquitlam. We're kind of spinning around.
Yeah, we're traveling at the speed of light here. We're zipping all around the place. So, okay. Thank you, Susan. Thank you. And another one
Still
from Susan.
Mine again. So this date, December 6th, I thought December 5th would be good enough to put my bird feeders back out, which hadn't been out since the spring.
Wow.
And I got one day of looking at my beautiful birds, and then the bear came, broke the feeder to smithereens. And I saw it a couple of days ago again. I don't have the feeders up, but it was just outside the fence. So I don't know how to tell when the bears have gone to sleep.
Well, some of them don't. That's the problem.
Yeah. Nice fence.
Our winters aren't cold enough that, and if there's food around, they don't go to sleep.
Oh yeah, garbage cans. Oh.
Yeah, and much like children. Yeah, if there's food around, they don't sleep. Yeah. Okay, so now we're on the other side of the planet. So this is up in just over the Blue Mountains in a place called Portland, which is, if anyone knows New South Wales, it's between it's near Bathurst and on the Western Plains. So here's some pink galahs. As I was driving along, they were on someone's lawn, all scratching at the grass, looking for bugs and stuff. So just fabulous looking birds. So
huge flocks sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And doing some hiking yesterday in the Blue Mountains with some friends, and came across a yellow-tailed black cockatoo, which you don't see very often, but they're mainly white or sulfur-crested, but the black ones you don't see all that often. You can tell he's got a yellow tail, despite you can't see the tail. You see it mainly in flight. But what is a giveaway is, see on his cheek, he has this yellow spot. That's a giveaway that it's actually a yellow-tailed black cockatoo. He has a little orange, yellow spot on his cheek as well. And another one we came across, this guy was really friendly. Like I took this with my mobile phone, and I was standing literally a foot away from the guy. Like, he was not scared at all. He was absolutely not scared. He was too busy feeding his face with the with berries from that tree. So
She, it's a female.
yes, female king parrot, just absolutely gorgeous bird. And
Thank you, Jane.
You can tell it's a female. The males are all red, except for the wings. The females have the green on the head and the back. So yeah, absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, I'm currently in Sydney, New South Wales at the moment. So I just thought I'd share some of my findings over the last couple of days. And
Great.
that's
Thanks,
all.
Brian.
Thanks, guys.
Oh my.
Stop
Wonderful.
sharing.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Brian. We won't ask you about the weather there. You've probably heard about the weather.
Nice. It's a balmy 27 degrees at the moment, and it's
and we were shoveling today.
Too bad. Too bad. Anyway, we look forward to having you back whenever you do come back. If you do come back, we hope you do. And I am going to close the meeting now and wish all of you a very, very happy holiday and a relaxing and healthy 2022. So see you in January, if not before then.
January 20th, right?
Happy holidays.
Yes, Merry
Yeah.
Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah, season greetings, happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
And
most
Merry
of all,
Christmas too. Yeah.
Happy Festivus.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.